Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today I would like to talk to you about the Filofax Burlington. This is quite a rare model and there are a few reasons for this. One of the reasons is that it had a very limited production run, first being introduced in 1998, only to be discontinued a year later in 1999. Now, even this short production run, I believe there are a few reasons for it as well, and it ties into why it is so rare. If you look at the Filofax price list from 1998, the Burlington is listed with a retail price of £168, which in today's money, accounting for inflation and so on, is roughly £316 or €370. Another popular binder from this period was the Filofax Portland, which appeared in the same price list with a much more modest price of £58, which today would be almost £110 or €130. Needless to say, this was a very expensive binder. In fact, it is one of the most expensive binders I have ever come across. Looking at the first price list not to contain the Burlington after it was discontinued, we can see the Mayfair, which was a comparable binder, was available in personal size with, well, in black with 23mm rings, and it came in with a price of £150, which still expensive, but still £20 cheaper than this. Another reason I think it wasn't around for such a, or let me rephrase that. Another reason why I think it was around for such a short time is that this was launched during a period when increasingly more people were moving towards digital solutions. Many people were replacing their paper-based productivity systems with digital diaries, digital project managers, digital note-taking systems. The Filofax, the tool itself, the binder, was viewed almost as obsolete technology. With that in mind, in 1999, why would you pay, if you still wanted a binder, with that in mind, why would you pay £170 for a Burlington when you could get the still very nice Portland for only £60? Well, to answer for you, I don't think you would, which is why the Burlington saw such a short production run. It simply did not sell, which is a shame because it is a very, very nice binder, and I wish that there were more of these out there because I want more of them. But anyway, let's look at what you actually got for all of that money. To just list off the specifications, you got a choice of two colors. You got raven black, as showcased here. You also got something called teak brown, which looks fairly nice actually. I'm usually not a big fan of brown binders, but the teak brown looks really good. But that's by and large where your choices ended, because this was only available in personal size. It was only available with 23mm rings. The exterior, as you've seen, is quite sleek. It's very minimal. It has this very understated design. It's quite glossy. I like that the stitching matches the color of the leather. I'm not a huge fan of contrast stitching, so this is very, very nice. The material is calf leather. It's not soft or pillowy, but it's still a bit malleable. It does have a stiffener in the front and the back, but as you can see, you can still bend it. You have a popper strap, which keeps the binder closed. The popper itself is made by Prim. It's very good quality. The popper cap is what you would expect from any binder made in the 1990s. It stays on, unlike on vintage binders, where the popper cap usually falls off. On this it will stay on. It will stay on for probably my entire lifetime. Let's have a look at the interior. And in doing so, let me draw your attention to this. It has excellent flattability. You open it, it stays open and it lies flat. Before we talk about what we actually have in here, let me point out something I found quite interesting. Filofax used to make their binders in the UK up until the early 90s We can still see vintage binders marked proudly with Filofax made in England. However, when production was moved abroad, we didn't suddenly get binders marked with Filofax made in China or Filofax made in India or whatever. Instead, the country of manufacture was simply omitted. With that in mind, I would like to draw your attention to this. This binder is marked as, if I can make it appear on the camera, it is marked as Filofax, Personal Burlington, calf leather, made in the USA. You very rarely see a country printed or embossed in these types of binders that isn't England. The only other example I can actually think of is the York model, which is marked as made in Italy. Why this is, I'm not quite sure, but maybe it's because made in the USA has less bad connotations than, for example, made in China or made in India has. Maybe it was to make it more attractive on the North American market. I really don't know. But I found it to be quite an interesting detail. The rings are, as I mentioned, 23 millimeter. These particular rings are quite stiff and quite loud. I won't judge, sorry, my camera is slipping. I won't judge the binder based on these attributes, because these attributes tend to vary between binder and binder, even binders of the same model. The stiffness and the loudness, it really depends on how much the rings have been used. Rings that have been used more tend to be a bit softer. So I won't hold the stiffness of these rings against this binder or this model. Something I will mention in favor of these rings is that despite the fact that they are almost 25 years old, well, they are 25 years old, at least 25 years old, they have held up extremely nicely. There is no misalignment, there is no gap between the teeth. They have held up very, very nicely. On either side of the rings, we have these protective flaps. They serve two purposes, really. One of them is to protect the binder from the rings. It's to prevent the rings from leaving marks or indentations in the leather. You can actually see on these flaps, you have the indentations from the rings. If these flaps went here, those indentations would be on the binder itself, and more than likely you would be able to see the indentations from the outside as well. The second purpose is, of course, to also make sure that nothing falls out of these pockets, which you have on either side of the rings. If there is anything on this binder that I would actually omit or dispense with, it would be these flaps. I don't like them. I don't mind having ring indentations in my binder. In fact, I quite like it. I think having marks and scuffs and just wear in general on any binder just gives it a lot more character. I also dislike that they make these pockets harder to access and harder to use, because these pockets are hard to use to begin with because you have the rings in the way. So, you know, you have to struggle to get your hand in, and now you also have to fight with these flaps. I really don't like them. I tend to just stuff the flaps inside the pockets like this. And I think this just makes the binder about 50 times more usable, I think. I also think it looks nicer, but this is just my personal preference. We've touched on these pockets already, but let's go through what pockets we actually have here. In the front we have 8 card slots. They are not flush, they're instead laid out in this sort of staggered arrangement, which means that if you were to write directly on this surface, you would have quite a bumpy surface. It doesn't really bother me because I usually have a thick card insert both in the front and the back, which negates any bumpiness that you might have in the binder itself. For people who don't do that, this may be a problem. There is a full-length pocket along this edge. It's not full depth in the sense that it goes all the way to the ring or to the rings. It goes to this edge here. You also have a pocket along this edge, which goes to this edge. On the right side, you have the same pocket arrangement. You have one full-length pocket here and one full-length pocket here. You also have a zipped pocket. It's not very spacious. And there is no gusset. So it's not very usable, I don't think. I tend to not use this pocket. But the zip is quite nice. It's a YKK zip. It operates very smoothly. There is no... it operates very nicely, what can I say? The zip has a hood or protective flap, which prevents any paper that you may have in here from rubbing against the zip when you close the binder, because when you close the binder, the paper gets pushed out towards this edge. And if you didn't have this flap, it would rub against the zipper head and would eventually wear down the paper. I like that they got the hood right on this. On some binders it's pointing the other way, which means that when the paper gets pushed towards this direction, it would actually get stuck underneath the hood rather than going over the hood. Excuse me. Which actually it makes the situation worse. What else? You have two pen loops. The one on the left is larger than the one on the right. I quite like these, actually. They're nice. It's not a thick piece of leather, which you have on older binders. I don't know how well you can see that, but it is a thin piece of leather which has been folded over onto itself. But it's not like the cheap pen loops that you have on modern binders, where if you put your pen in here, there's excess material in here which the pen will snag on, and it will push out through the bottom here. There is nothing for the pen to actually snag on in here. It's completely flush, and it's just very, very nice in there. So yeah, I have nothing bad to say against these pen loops. They're outwards facing, which means that they won't interfere with any tabs that you may have in here. So yeah, I don't know what else to really say about this binder. I think it's extremely, extremely nice. Sadly, it is very, very rare, as I said. But if you are able to get your hands on one of these, I could not recommend it enough. Yeah, this is the Filofax Burlington. I really cannot recommend it enough. Thank you for watching.